Welcome to part two of our training on individual education plans. So we're going to pick up where we left off on placement. When you're discussing placement in your meeting, consider the amount of direct instruction the student might need in relation to social interaction. If they need 4 hours of one-on-one or small group teaching, then the self-contained environment is probably where we're going to be spending most of our time. Where can the goals be best met? If we're talking participate in a large group of 18 or more students is the goal, then the mainstream environment is probably where we're looking at. Does the IEP match the placement? For a fourth grader who's working on matching colors, then maybe the self-contained environment might be better. Are the goals set up for the mainstream environment, for the self-contained environment, or for a mixture? You can always compromise with the parents, and as parents, always think about those compromises with staff. So, from the school perspective, there have been times when I didn't feel like the mainstream environment was right for the child, but the family was really pushing for mainstream. So, as the educator, I said, you know what? We're going to start with 1 hour a day of mainstream, and it's going to be at math and science because those are the students' strengths. And after a month, we're going to sit down and we're going to look at the data, and then we might have another IEP meeting to up the mainstream time, to decrease the mainstream time, to keep it the same. But it was easier for me to say, you know what? We're going to give that hour to see what we're really looking at, have the data. In this case, the student showed me that he was ready for more mainstream in time. We were able to up it. But those compromises back and forth sometimes help with the best decisions. Educators shouldn't just give parents what they want. Remember, the educator's responsibility is to recommend what they think is best for the child. Regardless of what the parent wants, it's what's best for the child. You, as the parent, keep in mind you might be pushing for what you really want for your child, but the person on the other side of the table is going to be pushing for what they think is best for the child, and hopefully we can meet on common ground. And both sides should not dig in. If you are going into the meeting as a parent saying, I'm only going to settle for 100% mainstream in 150 speech minutes a week, don't be so stuck on that. Listen to what the other side has to say. Remember, we're all on a team. I had a family that used to go to their IEP meetings, and they would give every educator, every speech pathologist, everyone in the room a team with their last name on a t-shirt. And it said team blank with they had two children with their pictures on it. And I used to think it was so silly. And then after a couple of meetings, I really realized they were building that team. We were all here for that child's best interest, and having that collaborative relationship made the meetings go so much better. Remember on both sides, you can end the meeting without it being finished and reschedule. As a family, if you're either uncomfortable where the meeting is going and you want to say, you know what, we have to finish up another day and reschedule so you can bring an advocate, or to think about what's being said or to do some research, you're allowed to. If you're really going back and forth and you can't come to the agreement, call timeout. Go get a drink of water, get a cup of coffee, take a few minutes, an hour, or a few days to really think about it and come back when cooler heads prevail. Make sure you're listening to everyone's concerns. I think this is really hard for both sides. For educators, it's really hard to hear the parent perspective when they're so caught up on what it's going to look like in the classroom. For families, sometimes we're so caught up on push, push, push for that child that we're not looking at the bigger picture. And remember that placement decisions are not a voting decision. They're ultimately made by the LRE rep with input from the team. Parents have a right to disagree, but this is not a we go around the table and we vote in majority rules. At the end of the day, that LRE rep will make the decision, but everyone's going to give their input. We really need collaboration in these meetings. And remember, when we're working on goals, all parts of the team are going to put in those goals. So that speech pathologist, that occupational therapist, the teacher, the behaviorist, the parents are all going to put in their input to best meet the needs of that child as a whole. So we really need the team to be open and non-defensive. It needs to be a joint effort. And what that means is you can't have the speech pathologist say, all communication is my domain. I'm not going to listen to the teacher because I'm the communication expert. And you as a family, you need to make sure that you're an equal member of that team because no one knows the child as well as you know that child. So you need to push to be an equal member, but treat everyone else in that room as an equal member. Where do we see those barriers to collaboration? Because we do see them quite often. not listening to either what the teacher has to say, the ESE specialist has to say. On the other side, I think a lot of professionals sometimes use their professional jargon. Oh, I'm going to use various concurrent schedules of reinforcement with your child. Most families don't know what that means. You need to ask them. Don't be afraid to say, hey, can you break that down a little bit more? Can you put it in layman's terms? Make sure that you, as the parent, take the time to listen to the educator's concerns and make sure they take the time to listen to you. Make sure that you get answers to your questions. I see so many professionals that just skip a question and keep going because they don't want to, get caught, draw that line in the sand and be stuck to it. Make sure any questions that you ask get answered, and don't get upset if the professional says, I don't have that answer, I'm gonna have to get back to you. That's a perfectly acceptable answer. We don't want them to just guess. It's okay for the professional to say, I don't know. As a family member, we have to understand that, accept that, as long as they say, I don't know, but I'm gonna get back to you. Remember, your priorities and perspectives are just as important as the professionals. You need to push what your priorities are. What are some of those effective communication skills? Active listening, follow along, take notes, repeat what someone's saying to you. You want to be as unbiased as possible, which is really challenging, and you need your child's teacher to be unbiased. Restate the content. If I'm hearing what you're saying, this is what I heard. Summarize what they said. Have an open, honest attitude. Please don't go in expecting this is exactly what I need and want. You want to be open and you want to be very clear on what you want, and we're going to come to an understanding on what's best for your child. Express your concerns. Don't judge the teacher. If you just put more effort into my child, everything would be better. No, say, I'm a little concerned about the amount of one-on-one teaching he's getting. How can we make him more successful? Use those I messages. I feel, I see, I think. Say and as much as you can, both as the family and the professional, not but. It's, yes, we can use that style of teaching and this. It's not, but we don't do that. Avoid negatives. I hear a lot of professionals say, we don't do that. That's the worst answer. There is no we don't. It's what's best for the child in that case. Some things that we usually don't do, for that child, it might be the best thing to do. Both sides need to be very careful of those nonverbal messages you're sending. If someone's sitting in the training like this, you're sending that you're upset. It's combative. Be aware of your nonverbal messages. I see a lot of professionals who are constantly like this or like this during the meeting. And what's that telling the family is what they have to say isn't important. If a staff member is presenting bad news to you, they should really be thinking about the time and the place. You don't start the meeting with bad news. We kind of sandwich it, but you want to state it very clearly. And when a professional does bring that bad news, that tough news to you, stick to that issue. Don't deflect. Let's have the open, honest conversation about it. And this is the hardest thing as a family. Try to stay calm during that news. If they have to say, your child's biting is increasing, you want to stay as calm as possible. Give your input. You want to make sure the school's being sensitive to your feelings. And when they give you those choices, you want to answer those choices as clearly as you can. Remember, the person and the problem are two different things. If they're short-staffed in the room and they're not giving your child the one-on-one that you want your child to have, that doesn't mean the teacher isn't a good teacher, that the teacher doesn't care. The problem is they're short-staffed. That's different than the teacher. Just understand there might be a disagreement, but remember, the professionals have to keep in mind that you're a person, you're a parent with feelings. As parents, you have to remember those are professionals with feelings. They're still people. Try to put yourself in that teacher's shoes who's working as hard as they can with limited resources right now, trying to teach virtually. And for them, they need to put themselves in your shoes. Don't always blame the other person for the problem. We have to look at the problem as a whole. What are the goals? The goal for every meeting should be to make sure each child has all the services they need to be successful. Let's look at how each party is going to see the problem. What's that desired outcome? And how can we hit those goals together? Where's the area of agreement? Well, we all know that we need to increase our inclusion time. Be flexible. Generate options that can achieve a win-win situation. What helps the school get what they need, the child get what they need most importantly, and the family get what they need? Come up with those options together. It's not just one person stating the choice. Try to come to that agreement. Recognize that as parents, they may want time to digest information. If you are that parent, take that time, walk away, say, can we finish this tomorrow? Come back with the options and then make that decision. Everyone should agree upon the outcome that best meets the needs of all parties. At the end of the day, the child should be first, their needs, their goals, and the family and the school should be coming to an agreement on how best to meet those needs, and then we'll come up with what's next. What you hope your teachers are doing with families. You want your teacher to begin with positive observations. I call it the sandwich approach. Jimmy is doing so amazing. He's learning all of his letters independently. He's having a hard time staying in his seat for whole group, but man, is his communication skyrocketing. That behavior should be observable rather than just that emotional statement. Jimmy is biting 3 to 5 times a day, most often during play and centers. It shouldn't just be, oh my God. If you're hearing that from the teacher, you want to ask them to step back, tell me when it's happening, tell me where it's happening, tell me why it's happening. Say exactly what's going to be implemented at school to address any concerns. And as parents, you should be asking, what can I do to help the school? And your school should be telling you what you can do to help. And you guys want to be thanking each other for the ongoing support. I hope both families and schools don't use humor in tough situations. Sometimes that humor, when a situation is a little heightened, can lead to misunderstanding. So I was in a meeting where I saw a teacher who was pretty angry. They felt like they were being attacked. And the parents said, well, at least you get that huge paycheck at the end of the day. And they were definitely trying to diffuse the situation with humor, just acknowledging teachers don't make that much money. But that teacher who was already upset got even more upset. We don't want to use that humor in those escalated situations. Let's not argue back and forth. We always want to listen to the other person, slow down, make sure your voice is calm when there's someone angry, and don't take either side personally. Teachers shouldn't take parents' anger personally, and parents shouldn't take teachers' frustration at the system personally. I hope you can join us for part 3 on Monday, where we're going to discuss developing IEP goals, objectives, and present levels of performance to make sure that your child has the best IEP possible. Have a great weekend and stay safe, everybody.